Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here in Amravati, although this is my third visit to Amravati. This is my first visit to an AMOX conference. And this is a pretty different feeling. It's impossible to finish thromboembolism in pregnancy 10 minutes in 10 minutes, and I have told the organizers and Nikhil that I have two options. Either I can stop at 10 minutes irrespective of where we are, or we'll see. It's up to your mercy. Okay, I bring you greetings from Kolkata, and I wish to see all of you in 2022 in Kolkata for the AICOG, which should be in a very, very pleasant weather and a pleasant venue. So what I wanted to talk was anticipating venous thromboembolism, which is a risk assessment, which I think I would skip, preventing venous thromboembolism, which is the prophylaxis, diagnosis and treatment, and which I definitely want to cover. Setting the context is that people say that venous thromboembolism does not happen in India. Unfortunately, it does. In India, there are studies which show that the incidence of venous thromboembolism is about 1 in 1500. I think there was one big study in pregnancy which published from KEM Hospital, Mumbai about 10 years ago. What we do know is low molecular weight heparin reduces the incidence of VTE by around 60 to 70% in non-pregnant patients. And that data has been extrapolated to pregnant patients. There is one study which shows that it reduces VTE by around 88%. Of course, we know that unfractionated heparin is very, very useful. What is important to remember is the risk increases as the pregnancy progresses. The risk is highest is in the immediate postpartum period, but there is a risk in first trimester as well, especially in patients who've got hyperemesis or who are carrying a thrombophilic trait. The risk of postnatal thromboembolism is 5 times that of antenatal. So how do we anticipate? Essentially, we need to look at the risk factors. You can find it in any of the guidelines like the NICE guideline or the RCOG guidelines. And these are the pre-existing risk factors. And obviously, the most important risk factor is a previous venous thromboembolism. Other than that, the second most important factor is the age of more than 35 years. Anything else comes after that. The risk of thromboembolism in women above 35 doubles from in women under 35. There are obstetric risk factors as well, and along with that you add new onset or transient risk factors. So it means if you do a risk assessment, it is a dynamic risk assessment in pregnancy. What you do a risk assessment in the first trimester, it changes depending on whether the patient is undergoing any surgical procedure, she develops any new complication of pregnancy, or whether she is bedbound for 3 days or more, or whether she has a fracture or she is undergoing a long distance travel. Now these are the thrombophilic traits, the heritable thrombophilic traits. The most dangerous one is the antithrombin 3 deficiency. Fortunately, it is less common. You see more often a factor V laden, which is among these a bit of a less serious issue, but there is protein C and protein A deficiency as well. And the acquired ones we talk about are the antiphospholipid antibodies, lupus anticoagulant, anticardiolipin antibodies, and the anti-beta-2 glycoprotein antibodies, and I will not go into those today. These are the medical comorbidities which I would skip, and I would straight away move into prevention. So how do you prevent and how do you do a risk assessment? In an antenatal period, a woman who does not have a prior thromboembolism, what you do is, if she's got 4 or more risk factors, then you give her prophylactic anticoagulation, the prophylactic dose throughout the antenatal period and 6 weeks postpartum. If she has got 3 current risk factors, then you start it from 28 weeks and go up to 6 weeks postpartum. If she's got 2 current risk factors, you just give it 10 days postpartum. You do not give it in the antenatal period. If the patient is getting admitted to the hospital in pregnancy, then you should give the patient a low molecular weight heparin because you anticipate hospitalization for 3 days or more, unless there is a risk of the patient going into labor or she is bleeding. A postnatal assessment of risk again needs to be done. If a patient has got a previous VTE, most often she would need antenatal coagulation, but then there are 2 groups of people. If the lady had a previous VTE, which was related to a major surgery or immobilization, then a prophylactic low molecular weight heparin would do. But if it was a spontaneous DVT without any risk factors, or she carries a trait like an antithrombin 3 deficiency, then they will need a higher dosage of low molecular weight heparin, which is approximately close to the therapeutic anticoagulation dose. Please remember the therapeutic anticoagulation dose is 50% or 100% higher than the prophylactic anticoagulation dose. I will have to skip this and move on to, I can see the clock ticking. So in the first trimester, I think the risk factor is hyperemesis and women who had an IVF and had an OHSS. Any IVF pregnancy with 3 risk factors, you give the prophylaxis in the first trimester. Please remember, if a patient is on low molecular weight heparin or unfractionated heparin, she should be instructed that she should take no further injection if she has bleeding or pain. And when we are giving regional anesthesia, we should avoid it 12 hours after the last injection if she is on a prophylactic dose, or 24 hours after the last injection if she is on a therapeutic dosage. If she has an epidural catheter, we would not remove the epidural catheter at least for 4 hours after the spinal or the removal of the epidural catheter or epidural. And if she's on a therapy, what other thing that happens is, if she's for an elective section, we do it in between the low molecular weight heparin dosage. And if we think it will be very risky to take her off the anticoagulation for 24 hours because of her risk factors, then we put her on unfractionated heparin, which we then, for the first to last 24 to 48 hours, which we then stop approximately 2 to 4 hours before anticipated delivery. The other thing to remember is we resume anticoagulation approximately 6 hours after a vaginal delivery, 8 to 12 hours after a cesarean section. But if the patient is under GA, you accept the risk of bleeding and start it sooner, because that is the risk of thromboprophylaxis, thrombosis is higher. I will I'll stop the agents. At the present moment, the low molecular weight heparin, the prices have come down. They are preferable because you do not need to monitor platelet count. The risk of bleeding is also less. But if the patient cannot afford, we need to do unfractionated heparin, and that is very, very good. And this is a dosage of low molecular weight heparin for prophylaxis. But anyway, a rule of thumb is to give an enoxaparin, which is for most women between 50 to 90 kg would be 40 milligram per day. Now, how do we manage VT? If we go on to manage VT, please remember you need a high index of suspicion for diagnosing either a DVT or a pulmonary embolism. And clinical assessment is unreliable, and even when you do an objective testing, less than 50% will test positive. So for DVT, the gold standard is to do a compression Doppler ultrasound. For a pulmonary embolism, when you suspect it, you either do a VQ scan or at these days you do a CT pulmonary angiogram. The risk is throughout the pregnancy, maximum in the puerperium. And what you do is, if the ultrasound is positive, this is true for DVT as well as PE. If the ultrasound or the CTPS shows that this is an embolus, then what you do is you immediately commence or continue the anticoagulation therapy. Please remember, from the time the patient presents till you do the testing, if your suspicion is high, please put her on the anticoagulant therapy. Then after you do the testing, and if it is positive, you continue the therapy. If it is negative and you have a strong clinical suspicion, please continue the therapy and repeat it in 3 to 7 days. If you have a low index of suspicion, then you stop it. And more or less it is the same thing that you do. Important point to note, D-dimer should not be performed because D-dimer is unreliable in pregnancy. D-dimer anyway goes high up in pregnancy. There's no point in doing a D-dimer. There is no role of doing a pre-test probability assessment. The baseline tests that we need are a full blood count, coagulation screen, and LFT, urea, and electrolytes. There's no point in doing a thrombophilia screen in pregnancy because it is terribly unreliable, so you should do it 6 to 12 weeks after she has delivered. There is no reason for a pre-treatment thrombophilia screen. So initial treatment is low molecular weight heparin. Now, about 5-6 years back, the guidelines said that you need to give them 1 milligram per kg of body weight twice daily as a therapeutic dosage. Earlier, whereas in the non-pregnant women, the dosage is 1.5 milligram per kg of body weight. So basically, it was thought in pregnancy the risk is higher. So all the guidelines changed. Recently, in 2 years back, the guidelines were reviewed because there were a lot of hematologists and obstetricians who were still going on using the 1.5 milligram per kg of body weight. And when they looked at the data in both the groups, they saw that the incidence of rethrombosis was the same. So now the guideline is revised again. So you can use either once daily 1.5 milligram per kg of body weight, or you can use 1 milligram per kg of body weight twice daily. If somebody again has a thrombosis while on the low molecular weight heparin, only then you need to do an anti-factor 10A assay. Otherwise, there's no reason to do an anti-factor 10A assay. Now, the way Nikhil is giving me looks, I'll have to stop. I will not go into the heparin dosage, we'll find it in any of the textbooks, but the advantages of low molecular weight heparin is a less anticoagulant effect, less thrombocytopenia, less bone demineralization, less local allergic reaction, once daily administration and similar efficacy, and you don't have to monitor. I will skip all these, but the take-home messages are, venous thromboembolism is a major complication in pregnancy. Proper risk assessment is mandatory. What is important to remember, as we are doing very well with our maternal mortality and we control the maternal deaths with sepsis, bleeding and hypertension, these are the deaths which are going to stick out at the present moment. Pharmacological prophylaxis should be used when indicated. For acute VTE, a high index of suspicion followed by objective testing should be done, and therapeutic anticoagulant therapy is indicated in suspected and confirmed DVT. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.